08 or email mxcc519@verizon.net. All proceeds go to the commissary of our imprisoned freedom fighters.
And once again, this is WBAI New York, 99.5 FM and WBAI.org on the web. The previous program was the Jordan Journal, heard Fridays at 3 p.m. Thank you, Earthbomb and Mike C., for those announcements from the Community Bulletin Board. Stay tuned for State of the Arts NYC with Savona Bailey-McClain coming up. It is now 5 p.m. Stay tuned.
Good evening. This is State of the Arts NYC, where we cover art. And tonight, our theme is On the Scene. State of the Arts NYC from the very beginning of this new year has been on the go, hitting festivals, fairs, conferences, press conferences, and reporting them all back to you. So tonight we're going to be focusing on some very special activities that are taking place. We will have Delphine Selles-Alvares, film curator for the new French Film Animation Festival, Animation First. This is sponsored by the French Institute Alliance Française, and they are presenting ambitious, innovative, and award-winning animated features and shorts. They will also be showing virtual realities, video games, and more coming out of France's most exciting studios and art programs. We will also have joining us back Crispian Riley-Smith, who is the executive director of Masters Drawings 2018. It started in 2006, and this is a U.S.-UK collaboration where they are presenting pre-eminent events and exhibiting wonderful old masters and some contemporary drawings. I was with them this morning at the Met, where we were looking at the Michelangelo exhibition. And then we will have joining us, wrapping up the program, Alex Nogales. Alex Nogales is the co-founder of the National Hispanic Media Coalition, and they started in 1986 to deal with the lack of representation or misrepresentation of the Latino community in the media. They are going to talk with us tonight about the Oscars and how there is a lack of Latino nominations for this year's award. So we have a packed evening for you. So let's begin with Crispian. So we will have Crispian on the line. Crispian, are you there?
I am here. Thank you very much for the introduction.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for allowing me to come to the Met to see the Michelangelo exhibition. It is quite stunning.
My pleasure.
So tell us, this is now what, your 10th or 11th year?
This is actually our 12th year.
Okay.
And we've got the sort of brief summary is we've got 21 exhibitions. We're covering 700 years of art, and we cover 40 city blocks.
But you also have, in partnership with you, the Met, Sotheby's, and Christie's, correct?
Yes, we're very excited about our partnerships with three key institutions in New York. So, yes, as you said, the Metropolitan Museum, the Morgan Library and Museum, and the New York Historical Society, and we also have commercial partnerships with the auction houses, as you said, Sotheby's and Christie's, and 21 commercial dealers. Yeah,
so you're sort of like walk because it's
Yes.
not like a traditional art fair where everyone is housed under one roof.
Exactly.
Has really been expanding. It's not just the 12 to 14 blocks, but then when
Yeah.
you bring in the Historical Society on the west side and dealing with the Morgan Library, which is sort of like in Lower Midtown, and
Yeah.
then the auction houses, you have a broader footprint for
Yes.
your whole event.
Yes, I mean, our intention is to be inclusive and to involve all the key cultural, what you might call the cultural stakeholders in New York, and those are obviously the museums and the commercial galleries and auction houses, which play an important part. We feel.
And we've noticed in New York an increase of international collaborations in New York City.
Yes.
We have master's drawings, but then later on in the spring, we will have Freeze, also from the UK. We will
Yeah.
also have Tifa joining us for their
Yeah.
spring edition. We have Asia Art Week that will be coming in the latter part of March. This is really new for New York City. And have you found this very rewarding?
Yes, I think the whole dialogue with all the partners and all the stakeholders in the city adds both to the cultural excitement of the city and to the commercial environment. And I think they all feed off each other.
I also find what's great about your event is the accessibility to works that people may not get a chance to see, period.
Yes.
Not just in museums, but with dealers. And your dealers have been quite gracious to the public in talking with them, explaining, sharing how they found the works, who they're working with when it comes to families. I find that very, refreshing, because so many people, may have learned about a particular artist or a particular work, but then when they get to see it up
Yes.
close, it's a different experience, wouldn't you say?
Yes, I think what we provide, or what the exhibitions provide, is you've got access to amazing objects and paintings and drawings and sculpture, but you also have access to leaders in their field who will, quite willingly talk to you about these objects, and they know them intimately, and they're only too happy to, because it's very much what they're interested in, their passion.
I also like the fact that many of your dealers are very patient with children and teenagers. I had some interns who were teenagers come to, I think it's W&K Shepherd Gallery on 79th Street.
Yes, that's where I'm actually calling from at the moment.
Oh, okay, great. And
Yeah.
he was so kind to these students that I had who had never seen a Picasso before.
Yeah.
And they were just so amazed, is this real? Is this true? And it's like, yes, this is real. This is true. And he was so kind, and he said, you could bring more people. And tomorrow I will be bringing some people, hitting
Right.
some of the locations tomorrow so that they could see a lot of these works.
Yeah.
Tell us, is there anything special we should look out for?
Well, it's very much a sense of discovery, and I would say if there's interest to anyone who's listening, just to go and have a look at our website, Google Master Drawings New York, and just download the map and just go around and see what see what interests you, because there is really everything for everyone's taste. I mean, I personally have started going around the shows, and there really are some amazing objects, and I was particularly taken by something in one of the galleries in Anthony Grant, where he has a Marcel Duchamp of drawing of a fantastic reworking of a Leonardo image, which he is kind of one of the major 20th century artists, and that was very exciting for me to see.
And I like the fact, even at the Met, when I was there this morning, how there was comparisons between Michelangelo and some of the draftsmen who he was close with, and the works that he shared with friends as well as collectors. So people have been collecting for quite some time, and just sharing, the process of perhaps a larger painting that he may do, or to look at how he thought about the Sistine Chapel, and you got to see it in stages, how it was being developed. All of that I thought was quite fascinating, and to see that history, like so up close, I thought that was amazing, and how it's preserved for over 500 years.
I think that intimacy, what anyone who is drawn to this period will excuse the pun, will find that drawings provide that intimacy and that immediacy and that insight into the thinking. And being up close to a Michelangelo drawing at the Met for one of the most famous ceilings by one of the most famous artists is really something very special.
Mm-hmm. So I also want to comment before we end your booklets.
Yes.
They are like collector's items in themselves.
Well, we do spend a lot of time and effort and energy putting them together, and it takes us about 6 to 8 months to put these together. But a huge amount of effort goes into by all these dealers to put on these shows, and it really is a huge effort, but it is immensely rewarding.
It is, because I just want to tell our audience is that the moment they are exposed at any location, they are gone within minutes. I remember last year I had a big group that I brought to Masters Drawings, and we couldn't get enough booklets for the group because they were going like hotcakes. Yeah, and I think that also made your Masters Drawing very special, that you figured out how to engage with people, and that was this little booklet that was visually dazzling. So therefore, people could understand why they should come out on maybe a chilly winter's day and weekend and see all of these wonderful works.
That's right. Well, tomorrow is meant to be quite warm, so I'm told. But yes, it is about engagement and bringing in audiences and new audiences to really look at these wonderful objects.
Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to let our audience know before we wrap up that you have a reciprocal version of Masters Drawings in London in June, correct?
That's right. It's just exactly. It's from the end of June, and it's a sister event. It's called London Art Week, and that's from the 28th of June to the 6th of July. Mm-hmm.
And so then American dealers can then go to the UK and show their portfolio of different figurative works, so that others in London can also consider collecting as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you so much. I know that you're busy. Today you had the kickoff event with talks. You're gearing up for tomorrow. But I wanted to thank you so much for joining us, for sharing with us. Is there anything else you wanted to enlighten our listeners to?
Well, nothing in particular other than have a look at our website. That there are sign up if you want to get the email blast, or just come and have a look over the next week till the 3rd of February.
Okay,
so we're open here every day.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Crispian. Great to see you again, and much success for Masters Drawings.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And we are back with State of the Arts NYC, where we cover art. And we just had a delightful conversation with Crispian Riley-Smith. We brought him back, and he is the executive director of Masters Drawings in New York, their 2018 edition. And we highly recommend that our listeners, hang out in the Upper East Side this weekend. The weather is supposed to be much more pleasant. You could go to their website, Masters Drawings in New York. The brochure and the map are downloadable, so you could do that. There is no cost to the public for attending the event, and you can visit as many dealers as you like. This is a U.S.-UK collaboration, so it's a mix of American, a mix of British dealers showing you the best in figurative works. And so now we move on to a very interesting film festival that's making its debut in New York. It's called Animation First. It's a new French animation film festival. It is sponsored by the French Institute Alliance Française, FIAF for those of you in the know. And we are very fortunate to have the film curator with us, Delphine Selles-Alvares. And I just wanted to thank Delphine for joining us. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me here.
Oh, you're welcome. And so this is supposed to be an exposure, correct?
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
To French filmmaking, particularly in the area of animation, virtual reality, and other types of experimental works. Mm-hmm. So why don't you tell us, Delphine, what made your organization decide to have this film festival?
Well, animation in France is incredibly important sector. There is many films made every year. I think France is the first producer of animated films in Europe and the third largest in the world after Japan and the United States. There's also people working in a short film format. There are people working in TV series and web series, as well as new technology like virtual reality, as you mentioned, and augmented reality. And there's so much going on, and French animation is fairly known worldwide. Films are award-winning films that actually go to a festival and are distributed. Animators coming out of French animated schools go straight to Hollywood to work in studios.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's quite a big group of French people who go to Hollywood at some point, often early in their careers. Many are involved in the production of American animated films, interestingly. And so we wanted to expose New York audiences to the breadth and diversity of that field. And we also wanted to challenge people's perception of what animation is.
Okay.
Often we think it's really for kids. It's not really for us because we've really passed the age. Although I have to say, I think we all enjoy Disney movie and Pixar movies for sure. But we don't always get a chance to see films that are made more specifically for adults. So we have an erotic film program, for instance. There are people doing experimental cinema and animation, and some animated films that are about quite more serious topics.
Okay, and what are some of those topics?
Some of those topics, we have a short film program from student filmmakers that are about different issues of the day. So one of them is about a difficult relationship between mother and daughter, for instance. Topics that have been made in animation are ones that deal with homosexuality in Egypt, for instance. Okay. Or sexual or death, the disappearance of a loved one. People may remember Waltz with Bashir. Also, that was such an important animated film when it came out. Right. About Israel and Palestine. So there are more serious topics in these films, but they don't get to be shown necessarily. Waltz with Bashir is probably an exception for sure. So we wanted to give that range of films to New York audiences, and really mostly we're talking about serious topics, but a lot of them are just a lot of fun. Okay. Generally.
Well, that's really kind of good because New York is not just an American city. That's true. New York City is an international city. So it is a platform for various people around the world to come and showcase important art or entertainment or to discuss important topics. So this is, very good for New York City to have this sort of new film festival that's, I guess, cutting edge for us. It's not for, you in France, but it's cutting edge for us because you're right. Many of us, we equate animation with children, and now that's starting to change with Coco, which we talked about a little bit. I think Coco made a breakthrough. I think with the the new short film Dear Basketball that's getting all the rage with Kobe Bryant, and I saw it last night. It's a cute little film based on poetry first and then added with animation and song, and it's a touching little piece. So I think people are starting to use, animation for adult themes.
Right. That's right. And those are two very good examples because they're such different films, both of them, and yet you can see the power of animation in recounting, in illustrating personal stories like Kobe Bryant's or Coco. You can really offer a universe that would not look the same, obviously, in classic cinema.
Right.
And it's really wonderful that those two have come out about the same times and get the same attention, where people get a chance to see, right, it's an incredible universe out there of animation.
Yes. I'm really intrigued with virtual reality and augmented reality. I'm also very intrigued with how we can use digital technology with different types of experiences, whether it is projections, dealing with digital projections, taggings. Now you have different types of taggings, laser taggings, to kind of deal with storytelling.
Absolutely.
In a way that we, like how science fiction in the 1950s and the 60s in the U.S. was able to discuss complicated issues. It seems like we can bridge that with animation, that we can use that as a platform to talk about those hard issues that, might be difficult for people to digest.
I think that's very true. That's very correct. And there is actually quite a lot of people working what we call documentary animation. And in fact, you're absolutely right. They tackle subjects that would be much harder to speak of, or people who tell their personal story using animation that are, I think, allows the filmmaker to start with to kind of draw what their personal interpretation of those stories are, and especially when they're personal, how do you tell people around you of what your story is? Right. And I think just as any art, as poetry or maybe sometimes classic films, really kind of let also the viewer use their own imaginations to understand what is happening.
Now, are all of these films in French? Or are they in multiple languages?
All of them are in French. We're showing all of them with English subtitles, of course. There are quite a few co-productions in the program, but all are in French. France actually produced their own film, of course, but they also co-produce a lot of films with other countries.
Oh, really?
Yes. So that's something that in cinema is a strong tradition, and it's more and more important now that you need actually co-producers from other countries to be able to actually make a film. So The Red Turtle, for instance, we are showing with Michael Dudoc-de Witt. It's really a beautiful film. I really quite recommend it. It was actually initiated by Studio Ghibli, the famed Studio Ghibli in Japan, who really, really liked his short films and reached out to him and said, we would like to work with you on your next project. And that's how The Red Turtle came about. And it was co-produced with Japan and with Belgium, and mostly made in France.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. Yeah. It's good to hear how people are cooperating with each other. They're not necessarily competing with each other. Sometimes I think we compete too much with each other, and we're not spending enough time, because what I'm noticing is that the nuances of some of these technologies really require a lot of sharing, because they're not as simple as people think they are. And I tell people, just think of open source, because it's like a river where all of this information and ideas and approaches are there that you could just kind of take out when you need it and put back. But if you're not open to all of that sharing, then you kind of miss out. And I think, we're dealing with a lot of, isolationist sort of policies. And it's good to hear how people are saying, no, we need to open up, we need to share, we need to come together. What are some of the other collaborations?
Another collaboration is 1884, Yesterday's Future, a project by Tim Olive and Terry Gilliam, which actually many people ask me, well, why are you showing this? Terry Gilliam is British. It's actually a British and French co-production. So the French studio in France has been really involved now much more involved actually in financing and producing the film.
Wow.
So that's also a lovely, originally, Tim Olive's team came to France because they had the resources and the tools to make the film, but rapidly the French studio really became a production, became one of the producers of the film.
Okay. Now tell us, what was your process for selecting the films?
Well, it's a huge field, and there are many fantastic people that we've met along the way in the journey. And one of the best places to start for us, and I think for many people who are interested in animation, is the Annecy International Animation Film Festival, which is, I think, the biggest in the world. It's a beautiful town, first of all, in the French Alps, by a lake. It's perfect.
Wow.
June, it's really, but they have, the festival has been there for decades now, and they really bring in films from all over the world, and filmmakers and producers. It's also a big market, so a lot of Americans go there also to pitch projects and find talents and production money. And there are a lot of programs of shorts. There are a lot of students programs as well. There are also experimental films. There are also a competition, of course. So it's really a good place. It was a good place to go to. And the program this year for this first edition was also informed by our partnership with Angoulême in France, which is an important hub for animation. They were able to develop a lot of production studios as well as animation schools. And with partnering together, we've been able to also to choose a lot of great films and programs, whether it's shorts or feature or virtual reality that were made in the region.
Okay. Now, I have a question about sort of like family programming, because I think that is the future. I think that virtual reality, augmented reality, animation, other light-based technologies, when it comes to digital storytelling is the future. And we're accustomed to it, and there's a hunger for that. So with your programming, is there ways for young people to learn a lot about animation and your style of animation?
Right. We bringing a lot of people from France to discuss those issues. Michael de Dogduit will come to talk about making the film and his creative process in creating the Red Turtles. We have an expert in new technology and virtual reality and 3D who's coming as well to talk to people about 3D and the new technologies, because I think you're absolutely right. Virtual reality is fascinating. I think the possibilities are so vast. And it's a tool that just right there waiting for artists, I think, to grab and make their own. So there's a lot to do with virtual reality, especially. So we're bringing a lot of people who have been producers also for a long time, have a long career. We also have an animator coming from DreamWorks, who is French. Who's been working in Hollywood for, I think, a few decades now, Christophe Serrand. And all these people will be there to also meet the public and students and discuss their work.
Oh, this is quite fascinating. Tell us, why did you pick January to do this?
January is a rather still period for a film festival in New York.
Okay.
There are many of them between the New York Film Festival. Earlier we discussed Tribeca as well. So January is a bit of a lull. I think part of it has to do with the Oscar campaigns and the awards campaigns, so there's not as much. And it felt the right moment to do it.
Okay, and we are going to be talking about the Oscars later on with another guest. So that makes a lot of sense, because I'm seeing that the animation category is growing with the Oscars. And that's why we've been a big supporter. This show has been a huge supporter of Loving Vincent.
Oh, yeah.
And that is it's a stunning.
It's stunning.
Film.
Yeah.
And over 100+ artists were involved in, painting over all of the film that was actually shot to make it look like Vincent van Gogh's work. And then you get to really learn about the man and his family.
That's right.
And I was just really taken back by it. It didn't win the Golden Globes, but it did get that Oscar nod. So you're right. This is a good time because as people are talking about films, this gives you a chance to introduce some new categories because I think a lot of Americans don't see enough foreign films.
That's true generally. For sure.
And I think we're shy because of the language part, but I think, we should still press forward anyway because you don't want to miss out. My favorite foreign film is Cinema Paradiso.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Oh my God, what a beautiful film. And the little boy, he's just too much. He's such a character. But it's just that I think you're right. That could be a great thing. Before we end this segment, tell me, with the French Institute, are they also going to be expanding their language portion so that way more Americans and New Yorkers can learn French more?
Everyone is invited to learn French at FIAF. We have a really good language schools, great teachers. We offer tons of classes. A lot of young kids take classes at FIAF, so I hope people should learn languages. I think earlier you mentioned how we live in a world where people want us to be isolated, and it's really, there's no better time now to learn a foreign language. It's essential. And then you can go see French films.
and maybe get some good French food too, some
as
cassoulets.
Well. That's right.
Well, I just wanted to thank you so much and your team. Everything you've provided, your press kits, the posters, the cards, they're gorgeous. You even have a wonderful app that you can enjoy to see the animation move even faster.
In augmented reality.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think this is fantastic. So tell us, when does the festival occur?
It kicks off Friday, February 2nd with a beautiful film, Minuscule. Great with little insects. People have compared it to Star Wars, and I wouldn't want to miss it. And the second part of the opening is a short film program of erotic films, really beautiful films, and it goes on all day Saturday and Sunday, February 3rd and 4th.
Perfect. So tell us the address of the French Institute.
22 East 60th Street, right near Madison and Park Avenue.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Delphine, for joining us.
Thank you so much.
And your team again. And we're going to take a break now and come back.
Thank you.
And we are back with State of the Arts NYC, where we cover art. We just had Delphine Selles-Alvares, who is the film curator for the new French Animation Film Festival, Animation First. That begins February 2nd through the 4th at the French Institute Alliance Française. That's on the Upper East Side on 60th Street. And it's a great opportunity for exposure to New Yorkers for these types of films. With that said, we are so pleased to have our next guest on the show. We have Alex Nogales, and Alex Nogales is the co-founder of the National Hispanic Media Coalition, and we are going to be talking with him about the Oscars. His organization has been around since 1986. He co-founded it with two colleagues, and they wanted to respond to the underrepresentation and sometimes misrepresentation of the Latino community in the media. So, Alex, are you here with us?
I sure am. Thank you very much for that introduction.
Oh, thank you so very, very much. I was so glad that you were able to accommodate us and come on to the show. What you are doing is exceptionally important right now. We just finished talking about French films, but now we could talk about what's happening in American cinema. So tell us, Alex, a little bit about your organization and the progress you have made since you've started it in 1986.
Well, we started the organization because of the fact that although we were 43% of Los Angeles County at that time, there were very few Latino reporters, and of course, no Latino anchors on the three stations that were on the air at that time: ABC, NBC, and CBS. And then the way the Latinos were portrayed was horrible. It read more like a crime blotter than it did news.
Okay.
You know, it was one of those where Maria killed Jose. Jose was running drugs. It was a terrible representation of Latinos. So we met, several of us, some attorneys, a couple of lawyers, a couple of people that were organizers, and we decided that enough was enough, that we had to do something about the situation as it was. So we formed the National Hispanic Media Coalition, and then a few years later, we decided to take on the entertainment industry, and we've done that. And now we're taking on the film industry for their lack of Latino representation, their complete disregard for this community. And just to tell you just how bad the situation is, you may know that Latinos are now 18% of the U.S. population.
Yes.
That we consume at the rate of $1.5 trillion a year. And more important than that is that Latinos are 24% of all the tickets that are bought in theaters across the nation.
Wow.
So you would think that we would have some representation because of that. We don't. 3.1% of the speaking roles on American films are done by Latinos. 3.1% when we are a huge population.
Right, and still growing, too.
Yeah, and the numbers for Latino producers, directors are just as bad. So it's one of those where we've had enough. You know, when we signed memorandums of understanding 17 years ago, we knew that sooner or later we would also have to deal with film. And we've complained about those numbers in film. We've complained and talked about what to do and what to do. And there's no good time but the present to do these things. So we're taking the plunge. We're taking Hollywood to task for their exclusion of Latino artists, both in front and in back of camera.
Okay. Now, it's just come out the last, couple of days that the Weinstein Company may be sold to a Mexican Latina, and she was the former head of Obama's Small Business Administration, and she, if it all works out, she will be also forming an all-female board of directors. And do you feel that that move might make a change in Hollywood in any shape or form?
Of course it will. I mean, it's a reaction to the outrageous behavior of one of the owners that, in fact, this was done. I know Maria. I know her heart lies. I know how she feels about diversity. I know how she feels about having a better representation of Latinos, both in back of camera, but not only Latino, people of color as a whole. So I applaud the fact that it seems at this point like they're going to get the property.
Right.
And I'm very pleased of the fact that they're also going to have women. It makes a statement, doesn't it? It makes a strong statement
Yes,
that
it
the
does.
board of directors is not consist of women.
Yes. Okay. I just wasn't sure if you were aware of it. I'm holding my breath too because you don't want to, put any bad luck into any process. And this seems like a very delicate situation, but it looks very positive that she will be able to take over the company. So that's one area where there can be some significant changes. What other programs do you think need to be instituted instituted in the film industry, so therefore you can start to break through and get more people behind the scenes as well in front of the cameras?
Well, you always have to go to the very top of an organization. It isn't just one executive at any one of the 6 studios that makes decisions on what films they're going to do, when they're going to do them, and so forth. It's a cadre of people. Mm-hmm. There's 4 or 5 people at the very top that say, okay, here's what we're going to do. One of them is a leader, of course, and he or she has to be in accord. But there's still a team of people that are going to be consulted as to what's filmed. So unless we also have people of color in that room, things are not going to change very much.
Okay.
They're making the decisions as to what films they're going to make, who's going to direct them, and who's going to star in them. So the directors also carry a great deal of power. And there was a study that was brought out by USC, and it claimed the fact that out of 1,200 or so films that were produced during the years of 2006 and 2016, there was only one Latina out of those 1,200 films that directed one of those films. The numbers for males no longer than 4. So one of them was a woman. So how can it be that we're as large a population as we are, that we see as many films as we do, and we have no hold whatsoever in this very, very lucrative business of motion picture?
Yeah, well, you know what it is too? The film industry has always been an industry based on relationships. It wasn't about what you know, it's more about who you know. And then people get comfortable because part of it is understandable. When you're doing a big production, you want to make sure somebody can give you exactly what you're looking for. But if you don't create inroads so that new people can enter, and then you broaden that, scope of people that you rely on and dealing with this production, it's never going to change. So one of the areas I think might be helpful is in the area of screenwriting. So are there any collaborations going on so that you can encourage more Latinos and Latinas in the area of screenwriting, which seems to be, if you're able to write that script and it makes a lot of money, you got a lot of voice in what happens in that industry?
As time goes along, Hollywood is making less and less films. Used to be that they numbered in the thousands. Now we're lucky if we have 300, So the number of screenwriters that are called for are very few. We have a writers program that we've had for 17 years. We bring in 10 people per year for a 6-week course on how to write good scripts for television. It's been immensely successful. Out of 140 people that have gone through the program, 35 are working writers. They're working at a production house, either at NBC, ABC, CBS, Fox, you name them, they're there. So it isn't like this is a science that only a few geniuses know how to do. It's nonsense, Get Out proved that perfectly. Person of color wrote it, and look at the hit that it is, and very deservedly so. And it wasn't like the writer, director had miles and miles of experience,
Right.
So it can be done. It takes this whole thing of who gets hired is very, very cultural. If I don't know someone from another group, how am I going to trust that they know what I want?
Right.
People tend to hire those people that are like them, that have the same ideals, that come from the same social background. So if you don't know any people of color, well, people of color are out of a job. They're not even going to get a shot at it.
You're right. You're absolutely right. You brought up a point that I did not realize, and it's a good point. That point is there are less film writers, because everything is diversifying. You now got Netflix, you got Hulu. They're all now developing films. And so it's not just Hollywood anymore. It's all of these other new technology platforms that are also bringing in some production. So it's not just them. We also need to figure out how to get with these other houses. So that's a good point you made. The other point you made is true. If you don't get to know people, you're not going to trust them. And I believe in breaking bread with people. When you break bread with people and you have that conversation, you have a nice drink, you get to learn each other, you get to know the families. It's the beginning of getting those things done. And you're right. So if we're not interacting and we're demonizing people on television and, with folks talking about all kinds of walls and fake news, then we're never going to get over and, get to know each other for who we really are. So you're absolutely correct about that.
Yeah, and it's a shame that this country, that we, all of us in this country, are going through these very divisive times that do nothing but make people bitter enemies one with the other.
Yes, I agree, and I think we need to stop that. So again, let's talk about some solutions, because you are bringing up some other interesting points that I didn't even think about myself. What else can others do to help your effort? Because, with African Americans, they pushed hard and got various people in the industry to advocate as well, and it made a difference. What can others do to help your organization and other Latino actors, actresses, and directors, so therefore there could be more inclusion?
We're taking a page out of the African American book. They were assertive. They weren't going to be denied, and it worked. And so we're doing exactly the same thing. It's going to be one of those types of situations where we're calling them out by name so that there's accountability. And we're saying to them, you got a problem. And your problem is that you don't have Latinos in any of your films. You're leaving money on the table by not doing precisely that. So you've got a problem, and we want to talk to you about how you're going to solve that problem. So it isn't our problem, it's their problem. So we're going to do the same thing as African Americans did so successfully. And, any fight that you have along these lines, it isn't about just Latinos. It isn't just about African Americans. It's about every group of color, people of color in the United States, because we all have the same problem. Asian Pacific Americans, Native Americans, Muslims, we all have the problem of not having access to a very great industry.
You said it, access. So aren't you going to do something on February 5th?
We are.
Tell us what you're going to do.
We're going to be going to the hotel where all the nominees in film, behind the scenes and so forth, have their luncheon. And we're going to demonstrate in front of the hotel. And the reason for that is because we want them to know how we are feeling and what we want them to talk about as well. We want them to talk to the studio heads. We want them to talk to directors. We want them to talk about themselves so that, in fact, a sympathy can start going and a push can get going that they will be part of as well, so that, in fact, we can settle this problem.
It's interesting because just recently this week, Jessica Chastain and Olivia Spencer collaborated together. So therefore, both could get a better pay for the film, because Jessica realized that she would probably get paid more money than Olivia Spencer. So they went in together so that they could each get a better deal. And I'm hearing what you're saying. You're right. You need people willing to advocate for producers, actors, directors, cinematographers. So therefore people get the chance to do these types of films, get these opportunities and make a difference. I just want to thank you so very, very much, Alex, for coming on to our show, discussing this at this important time so that people will pay attention as we're discussing all of the award shows that's leading up to the Oscars. And maybe we too should be saying, you know, what can be done to help, various actors and not let it be just one this year, two next year, because I'm a big fan of The Shape of Water. So I hope The Shape of Water wins several Oscar awards, but it shouldn't be just one. It should be several. But I still, you know, am very supportive of Guillermo de Torres for his beautiful film. And we just want to keep in touch with you, stay involved, and help as much as we can. So thank you so much, Alex, for coming on to our show and just talking with us for a few minutes.
It has been my pleasure, and I thank you very much for the time.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. All right, we're getting ready to wrap up the show. So we just had an invigorating conversation with Alex Nogales, who is the co-founder of the National Hispanic Media Coalition. And we were talking to him about the Oscars, about the lack of Latino representations during this year's award season, and how we can be more aware, be more supportive, and helpful. So we're getting ready to wrap up our show this week. Again, we just want to remind people of some wonderful things that are taking place. So one, you have Masters Drawings in New York. It starts tomorrow. You could go onto their website, download the map and the brochure. It's quite beautiful. Sotheby's is going to start auctioning some master's drawings this weekend as well. Now, if you've never been, it's really a nice place to go. You don't pay anything to go inside. And what I think is so amazing is that you could go and check out the lots before they are sold. So you get to see the items before they go up for auction, and you can examine them, ask questions about them before they are sold. The auction is also open to the public, and they have some stunning pieces that are going to be auctioned this weekend as a part of Masters Drawings. We also wanted to let you know what you can expect next week. This week, State of the Arts was honored to go to Washington, D.C., and we were there for the press conference for the National Assembly of State Art Agencies. And they wanted to share with the public. So if you go to Twitter, and Facebook, we have actually uploaded the entire press conference, particularly on Facebook. You can see the whole thing, pictures, testimonies, and reports. So therefore you can read from these state agencies how they've been working for the last 2 to 3 years to use the arts to help to improve quality of life of Americans, particularly for veterans. There was a stirring speech by one of our veterans talking about how the arts actually helped him with post-traumatic stress disorder, how it is helping his family as well, what it has done for him, how he has dealt with all of his emotions, trying to re-enter society. These are heartfelt stories, examples. We learned about the rural parts of South Carolina and what they are doing there to help integrate their population, improve economic development. We're very proud that we were able to go. I also was able to do a quick side trip to the Lincoln Memorial. I always wanted to do that, but also to the Smithsonian's new African American Museum that was just named today as the best design for the year 2017. I am so proud because it started with J. Max Bond, who has since passed away. He was a Harlem architect, very well respected, and then Sir David Adderjay, after Max died, continued the project and is now considered the best design in the year 2017. So there's a lot to be grateful for. It's a great new year starting off. And so we look forward to talking with you next year. You get to hear these roundtables as well as other events. So enjoy your week and we'll see you next Friday. Bye-bye.
I'm Jesse Lent with the WBAI Resistance Calendar. Monday, January 29th at noon, join the Race and Public Space Workshop of the Institute for Public Knowledge for a conversation with Wistenly Alsanat about his 2017 Jacobin article on the prospect of reparations for Haiti, along with a discussion of the argument made by Ta-Nehisi Coates in his landmark 2014 Atlantic article at the Institute for Public Knowledge at 20 Cooper Square in Manhattan. You can learn more by sending an email to ipk.info@nyu.edu or by calling 212-998-8466. Then on Tuesday, January 30th at 6:30 p.m., the organization Close Rikers will hold an event entitled The State of Close Rikers, celebrating the power of movement building and the accomplishments of over 170 partner organizations and their members committed to closing the prison and to community building at the New York Society for Ethical Culture Auditorium at 2 West 64th Street in Manhattan. Doors open at 5:30 p.m. They said it couldn't be done, reads a statement from organizers. They said others had tried and failed. Since its launch in April 2016, the Close Rikers campaign has continued to create the space for meaningful criminal justice reform. Together, we have changed the narrative around mass incarceration across the nation. To find out more, email Brandon Holmes at the email brandon@justleadershipusa.org, or you can reach the New York Society for Ethical Culture by calling 212-874-5210. And on Saturday, February 10th at 2 p.m., the third annual Black Lives Matter Newark panel discussion will take place at the Newark Public Library at 5 Washington Street in Newark, New Jersey. Moderated by Lori Scott Pickens, Director of Community Outreach at Rutgers University's School of Criminal Justice, the panel will examine how we got here and the systemic challenges African American families and communities consistently face. According to a statement from Black Lives Matter Newark, panelists will provide action steps to help repair the damage and prepare for the future. You can learn more about this event by calling 973-733-7784 or by sending an email to reference@npl.org. The Queer Detainee Empowerment Project is a community organizing group that works with lesbian, gay, bisexual, queer, two-spirit, trans, intersex, gender nonconforming, and HIV-positive immigrant prisoners and their families currently in detention centers, those that have been recently released from detention centers, and those at risk of entering immigration detention in the tri-state area. Black and Pink is an open family of LGBTQ prisoners and quote-unquote free world allies who support each other and the dream of the abolition of the prison industrial complex. On Sunday, February 18th at 2 p.m., the two organizations will continue their monthly campaign at the volunteer-run bookstore Blue Stockings, sending letters to those currently serving time in prison. Blue Stockings is located at 172 Allen Street between Stanton and Rivington Streets in Manhattan. Find out more at bluestockings.com/event/calendar or by calling 212-777-6028. That's the WBAI Resistance Calendar for the week ending Saturday, January 27th. I'm Jesse Lent.
Creative Unity Collective, alternating Friday nights, midnight, WBAI 99.5 FM in New York.
Once you change your philosophy, you change your thought pattern. Once you change your thought pattern, you change your attitude. Once you change your attitude, it changes your behavior pattern. And then you go on into some action.
Once upon a time when we were colored, stolen from the mother. 400 years later, Mr. Charlie's on some other. Take this as an affirmative act, just slap back the whack. Catch brothers, sisters who are falling through the cracks. Creativity and unity, the keys to maintain our humanity and our sanity. No vanity, materialism, big willy crap. Just progressive elevation, can I get a soul clap? Keep it going on. CUC, keep it going on.
And once again, this is WBAI New York, 99.5 FM, and WBAI.org on the web. The previous program was State of the Arts NYC with Savona Bailey-McClain, heard Fridays at 5 p.m. Usually at this time, Radio GBE with Imhotep Gary Bird would be on the air. Radio GBE is on the air, but with guest host, once again, of Bob Law, another individual that I will embarrass him with accolades that he did not pay me for. With that said, another legendary radio